sábado, día 4, que estamos en Zona Maco. Es muy interesante la conversación que vamos a tener hoy. Es con Montserrat Castañón, directora de la Galería Ángulo Cero, y con Fabián Capello, diseñador industrial, franco-italiano, inglés-mexicano, ¿no? Y un poquito la idea es que ellos nos cuentan de su trabajo y empiezan una conversación de Monse como la galerista, Fabián el diseñador, Monse basada en la Ciudad de México, la traducción. La conversación va a ser un poco en Spanglish, pero bueno, Monse establecida en la Ciudad de México y Fabián que ha estado saltando de país y ciudad en ciudad y pues nada, estamos como bien contentos de lo que nos van a platicar. No sé quién empieza de los dos.
Hola. Lo siento, pero yo voy a hablar en inglés porque my Spanish is terrible and I moved to Mexico City 8 months ago. I'm an industrial designer. I work very little with galleries, actually. That's a very small part of my work. And I will try to show you a little bit of what I do quickly, and then maybe it would be nice to talk about what galleries can bring to design today as a field of experimentation and research for designers. And hopefully, I can show you quite a few examples. So that's only work that has been done in the studio for the last 2 years. And so that's very recent work. Most of them are products, as in they are available in the market. They are unlimited editions, like unlimited amount of those objects. That's a chair that I designed for an English company. And it's just a little take on like very traditional English chairs, like Windsor chairs. And like sort of small contemporary redesign of very basic techniques. I think my work is very concerned with two things: how objects are made and how objects are used, and most of the time also shared, because I have a very big interest in the public space and in objects that are shared in general. So that's another product for a Swiss company that does wall clocks. I'm going to try to show you the spectrum of the things we do in the studio, that I do in the studio. Some public furnitures for a small town near London called Kingston. So where the studio designed a series, I think, of 32 pieces that goes from bike racks to bollards, benches, planters, etc. Where slowly the pieces in the city are being replaced. And so that's one of the bollard system. It's an entire system, so there's different height, different places where it's being used. And I guess there is something that fascinates me when I work, is to see my project being lived with, like handled and misbehaved and dirty. And I that's also why I try, most of the time I try to always imagine my work being used, and I never really see it in a beautiful pictures like this. And I really like the idea of making objects that people will live with. That's a series of small handles for like doorknobs for kitchens and dressing rooms, and also those objects are available from an Italian company. They're very small, they're like big like this. That's the whole collection. That's also a part of my practice. I teach, and that's very important. That's something I always thought. I've always been teaching. So from when I graduated, I became assistant of a professor, and then I started to have a own class. And I'm doing this research project in Japan, which is like the further place you can imagine going to teach, but it's actually very interesting, and we're doing a long-term project with the university in Kyoto about public spaces in Japan and public furniture, which is a really big interest of mine. And that's some example of the work that we did with the students, that the student did really last October. And the idea was to improve. I also love the notion of improving, improve the campus. So that's the university, and I ask them to use like this very basic timber material to improve one place, one situation, and they come up with really beautiful example. I don't know if you can see there's this big bridge here that is in the pound, and then there is the little bench at the end. So one of the subjects I gave them was furniture for conversation. So they had to create like a place, a furniture that was bringing conversation to the game, and also using the little bit ugly places in the campus or like weird situation to maybe create interesting types of furniture. Okay. That was like a quick overview, I guess, of what I do. And then I wanted to talk about the gallery and the design I've been doing. Also, that's very recent work. That's like the last 2 years. I thought I would show some example of the object we also do. So that's very little, like limited edition work. They're all like 1 or 2 pieces. And I always question myself, like, why would I do this kind of work? Why would I work for a gallery? Like, why would I do 1 piece when hopefully I can do more? And I think there is something really interesting in the liberty that the gallery gives to the designers. Being able to experiment with materials. This is a series of lightings made of architectural glass and folded metal. And I guess they're really object about the language, like about the language of the object itself, about the shapes, the colors, and also the idea of light itself. So how all the materials together will reflect the light, will create colors, will create shadows. And I think they would be really bad selling objects because of maybe their slightly complex or strong aesthetics, but that's really the kind of thing we can do with gallerists. So that's more of it. That's a series of it. And then it's funny, for some reason I feel like when I work with galleries, I love to do lights. I don't know where it comes from, but that's a series of lightings. They're like architectural scale lightings, so they are pendants and wall-mounted and standing lamps designed for a gallery in Italy, in Milan. And they're also very limited edition. So maybe the one before were almost all unique pieces, and this one we did 12, which is a number, I guess. And I guess the most amazing thing when you work with galleries is that you have really the time and the budget and the context to go so deep into details and work with the best artisans. And those guys, they are not really artisans, they're like a small industry, but then we were really able to, because of the kind of context where the project sits, we were really able to like go into such details and have an amazing finishing that actually cost a tiny bit too much, but because it's for a gallery, we can do that. And that's really interesting in terms of research and experimentation, I think, for designers. And those guys that are making these pieces, I love, they are making the plates for the buses in London. So like they are punching, they are doing perforations and foldings, and they work really amazingly. And then we go back to the first gallery that I worked with in Paris. I shown you the lamps, and that's a desk. It's a one unique pieces with transparent drawers, and everything is very functional. But I guess again, it would not really be adapted to any market or any markets outside from collection. And I think in a way, maybe I should not say that, but it's a very good thing. It doesn't. It maybe sounds bad, but I think collectors are the most crazy people. Yeah. Because they really acquire things with very little amount of reason behind. But that's also very beautiful as an act of getting things. So for me it's really a field where I can express much more language, much more like research about techniques and materials and do things that are maybe a little bit less justified. Sorry?
Less functional.
Yeah, as well. And, okay, more of the desk. Then I wanted to show you quickly, maybe I need to calm down. I wanted to show you quickly one project. It's the latest project I finished in the studio, and it was for a design fair in Miami called Design Miami, which runs parallel to Art Basel in Miami. And I guess it's not really like work for galleries because it has been commissioned by a magazine, and it was more around some sort of marketing event or communication event, but it still belongs to the same realm in the way that it was organized on the side of Design Miami. And that's a garden that I designed for Wallpaper magazine, English magazine. And I wanted to show it to you also because I've moved to Mexico 8 months ago, and I think this project really is like Mexico slapping my face with colors and shapes, and me not being able to restrain myself from working with it. So that they're all public furnitures in a way. They all could be prototypes for public furniture. They all have the idea that the most interesting thing that the furniture can do is create a situation where people could meet, speak, exchange ideas, or just be together. There is very strong influence from large-scale public furniture that one can see in the street of Mexico, which is quite a rare and beautiful and an amazing heritage that I think we should really talk about one day, because it's something very rare. The shapes are really drawn from things I see. This is Tlatelolco, which is really an amazing place, and this amazing furniture that one see quite a lot in public space in Mexico City. Okay, that's an adaptation of it. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. But I think it was a very interesting point when you said that when you work with a gallery, you're able to experiment more and don't think about function as much as maybe expression. And there was a piece on the Financial Times recently, and the title was, Why do people spend so much money on uncomfortable chairs? That was the title. And, there were pictures of all these iconic chairs by Ron Arad, by Studio Nucleo, by Zaha Hadid, and all these designers that are sold for a lot of money, thousands of dollars and pounds. And you talk about why would you spend so much money in something you can't use, or that it's uncomfortable. And they said it's because, and the argument behind a collector buying these kind of pieces is that you don't really buy it to sit on it, you can. And there's actually there's a quote I love that says a chair, one of these chairs can be both a sculpture or a chair. If you place it somewhere and if you look at it, it's a sculpture, as a regular sculpture, but if you sit on it, it's a chair. So it's both things at the same time, and I think that's what's defined collectible design. Now, when you spend so much money on those kind of pieces, you're buying it because for you it's art, and maybe you will never use it and you will never sit on it, but it inspires you some way, and it as an art piece will, So it was very interesting, and I think you're right. When we work with designers, it's that we give complete freedom to them. Maybe there's some a little brief that the gallery gives you. Maybe okay, you can spend so much money, or we want lighting or furniture or something like that. But you usually get more freedom than as working with a company, or with a magazine or something like this. That's what we also try to do when we work with our designers and our artists, and they produce things for us, especially for us. We usually give them total freedom of expression. Obviously, they know, it has to fit here, it's gonna be exhibited here, so we have to think about it, or. No, but I know they're gonna do something good, because that's why we work with them. That's why they choose you, because they know you're good. They know your work has certain quality features, they know it's going to be good because they're trusting you. If not, you wouldn't be working with them. No, so that's also the philosophy I have. So when we do commissions, I know it's going to be good, and I trust them with that freedom. And I'm going to show you one project, our latest project, that it's a perfect example of that. If you go through the others, that project was our last exhibition in the gallery. It's called Ciudad Imaginada, or Imagine City, by Luisa Restrepo and Diego Vides Borrell. And I think it really shows what we're about. No, because it's a collaboration between two of our artists and designers. Luisa is from Colombia, she's from Medellin, and she's an artist. She does glass art mostly. And Diego, he's a designer, Diego Vides, he's a designer focused and specialized in hand-blown glass. So he does more. He's more of a designer, and Luisa comes from the art world. So it's a really good mix, because it's really what we're about, no? And they started collaborating a couple of years ago, and this project came about. I was already working with them separately, and they came to me because they wanted to do an exhibition. No, like, we want to show something here. Like, what should we do? It's like, I don't know, what do you want to do? And they were thinking about making lamps, no? And this project, it's an iteration of a previous project by Luisa, which started in Colombia, which is called De la Ciudad al Cuerpo. It was a jewelry collection that she developed with a Colombian architect. And it's a collection of jewelry inspired by neighborhoods, like maps or blueprints from different neighborhoods in Medellin and DF. And now they brought us that project. It finalized in this collection, also with Luisa, but inspired with the neighborhoods in Mexico City. So I think bringing together these two cities and these two disciplines was really what we're about, because we're really about making connections. No, I think the gallery with the designer, because sometimes as a designer you don't have that reach, no, to get these markets, to get these collectors, or to get this new market is different for than what usually a designer is used to. No, so it's a project we really love, and it encompasses what we're about, and I think it may be also your experience with them. And I remember when they showed me the first, I was like, okay, like lamps, what kind of lamps do you want to do? No, yeah, like it was so vague. It was like not even on a napkin, and I was like, okay, I think I get your idea. Okay, I trust you, you know. And I didn't see them until like a couple of days before we started installing the show at the gallery, and I love them, and I just love working like that, no, like just leaving them a lot of freedom so you can like experiment and really propose new things, and at the end it's the really beautiful pieces, like one-off or limited editions. And it's also, for us, it was a very it was our first exhibition that was produced especially for the exhibition, you know, like, because the previous exhibitions were things that were already produced and that we just curated and brought together, but this one was like from scratch, which was a very good goal that we reached, that made us very happy. And yes, and we've grown so much. This is our third year here at the fair. The gallery is 2 years old. We're very young. And the first time we launched like a week before our first Mako, which was it was funny, but it was great because it was a great exposure for us. A lot of people got to know us. And if you see the first booth we had to the booth we have this year, it's like a total upgrade, and I'm really proud of our booth this year. And I'll show you, if you go back, this is our booth last year, which I think it looked better than the year before. So we keep improving. And what I love about this one is actually we presented 2 works by Fernando Lapoz, that I think you know him, you're probably friends. And Fernando, I know him through a common friend as well, Emma. She introduced me to Fernando. And he had this amazing project that he developed in Oaxaca with corn. he spent time with the agricultures, yes, in Oaxaca, and he really got to know the situation there, how they work, all the different kinds of corn that we have in Mexico and especially in Oaxaca. And from that, he created these two pieces that are very conceptual. They're not functional. They're very they're sculptures, no, like the big arc with the corn. Collage, I don't know, marqueterie. He created these, he developed this marqueterie made of corn instead of made of wood that it's really, really beautiful. And then that little sculpture that you see to the right that has like a red neon, that one, Totomostle, that I love. When I saw it, when he showed me the pictures, I was like, I love it. We have to show it. I was like, we have to show this project in Mexico. Like, it's amazing, and someone has to see it. So I told him, like, we have to show it at Mako, because we were almost, it was like 2 months before. Like, we have to show it, because I don't care if we don't sell it. I just really want to show it. You know, like, I really want people to see it, and we show it, and that lamp was a showstopper, of course, because also it's in your face, no? And what I love about that is that people got to know Fernando, because he was not very, I mean, now he has more, he's a little famous, he's getting famous for his work, but a lot of people didn't know him. And I remember Mario Ballesteros from Archivo, who's the director of Archivo Diseño y Arquitectura, who, if you don't know, is a museum, a design museum here in the city, very important for the design community here in the city, because they always supporting us, and he loved it. And then he invited Fernando to one exhibition, and then the second exhibition he invited Fernando. It was with this piece, and it was one of the centerpieces of that exhibition. And then it ended up in the cover of Harper's Bazaar Art, you know, which was amazing. It was like, I love that, you know, that development. It was amazing to see, and I was so happy that we show it from the beginning. So, and I think it's a kind of work that also shows how design can portray and can give that message as art as well. No, which is amazing, because they, for example, Fernando also does very beautiful functional pieces, as Fabian does as well. So I think that's the beauty of working with a gallery, or as a gallery working with designers, because they have a different approach than an artist. Because you think about, you're always thinking how to solve things. You approach things different than an artist, I think, and that's what I love. And you don't stay in your comfort zone. No?
I don't know if this one works. It does? Okay. Can I interrupt you?
Of course, yes.
Can I add to this?
Yes.
I agree, and I would love to add one point. I really don't think design is necessarily about finding solutions, but it's really about showing new possibilities. And I think Fernando's project is so interesting for that, because it apart from those pieces, there are also examples where he used the husk of the corn in very functional ways as wall surfaces, and I think that would actually eventually end up in a very industrial market. I'm pretty sure that would just need time, and I think it's very important for the galleries, because that's the only place where designer can share and they're concerned about bigger topics. And I was wondering maybe if that's something that you would be interested in. There are designers working with craft today, for instance, or there are really a lot of designers like Fernando's being a little bit engaged in their practice, or actually very engaged, and acting and embracing other fields than design, like for agricultures and food and
chemistry.
And also I guess the craft is a little bit also like a question that could be in these circles now, like.
Yes.
And I guess the idea of traditions and artifacts as a traditional object. So I don't know. Maybe that's also like the gallery should be a laboratory for designer to be able to express those ideas that eventually I'm sure this will end up on the market.
Of course.
But it will take 10 years, 15 years.
But that happens. For example, I mean, it hasn't happened to me yet, but we work. I've been lucky enough to be close to other galleries that have been working for the past 15, 10 years. I especially work closely with a German gallery called Aman Gallery, that if you go to the, no, there's another picture from Aman. There, that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a booth of the gallery in Design Miami this December, and I've been working with her for the past 3 years, and I've been very lucky because she has taught me a lot. She has been like a mentor, which has been great for me. And now she has been exhibiting some of our artists. Now, for example, the pieces on the wall, the white ones, are by Abel Zavala, which is one of our artists. Yeah. Which that's great, no? Because now he's exhibiting alongside Zaha Hadid, Ron Arad, Andrea Branzi, and all these great names. But what she told me once, and she didn't tell me, she was talking with someone else, and I heard that's what happens, because she has been working with Ron Arad and with Mark Newson and with all these big names since like 30 years. No, and she has like some of the prototypes of their pieces that end up in mass market, you know, and that's what galleries are also about. Like you give them all this freedom to experiment, to research, to develop, and they start with prototypes. They start with one-off pieces or with limited editions. Then with time, start refining and start getting more industrial until they reach the market, and then it's a whole story.
Yeah. No? And I think now it's so important that the gallery take this role, because I'm going to go quite far, but I really think industrialization needs to change completely, and the way we produce objects there needs to be a real shift, because I think we're at a time where things have to change, and I think the gallery should be the laboratory for this.
Yes. Completely.
In the same way that in the 90s, Ron Arad was being able to innovate in galleries and then apply his processes to the Italian manufacturing that were producing thousands of chairs. But I think now the thousands of chairs needs to be something different. I don't have the solutions yet, but I think it should come from the research that galleries do with designers.
Yeah, no, completely. So this is for us also as a Mexican gallery. We try. I mean, there's people really working closely with industry that also do some work with galleries. For example, Jorge Diego Etienne, who I always mention because he does a really good job working with the industry mostly. I mean, mostly in Monterrey, but he's never taken el dedo del renglón. I don't know how to say that in English. I don't know if you understand that expression, but he's been very focused on really involve industry with local design. No, and then that turns also into special projects. But I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry? But I think that's also very important because, for example, in Mexico, as you know, we have our tradition of crafts is very important, no? And that's why a lot of our designers, compared to other designers in other countries, they really focus on artisanal projects and artisanal processes. And at least for me as a gallery, I like to have a good mix. No, that have pieces that are not completely artisanal, you know, made by the artisan, but they have the hand of the artisan, they have the hand of the designer, and also the hand of the industrial workshop. No, like I think it's a good mix, because if not, you end up, there's a very thin line between a craft that you find on the market or a piece of design, maybe not high-end, but still a piece of design that you find in a store or a piece that you find in a gallery, no? So I think it's also our role, at least here in Mexico and maybe in other, fellow galleries in other places in Latin America, to keep that balance as well, no? Okay. Like, it's industrial, but it also has a little bit of artisanal, and it has a little bit of artistic. So and I think you can see it, no? For example, one of the pieces we're showing now at the booth, if you haven't been there, go. If you go to the picture of our booth now, yeah, that one, the big console by the console at the back, yeah, Valladoc. That one I think it's a perfect example, no, because it has these. They work a lot with artisans, and it may some of their pieces may seem too much, no, as Ceci will know. The metal work, the marble. It's not just. I think it's a perfect mix, and then at the end, it's this really beautiful, elegant piece that looks upgraded from the previous pieces. So I think that's also our role here. And here in Mexico, we need more, not just us, but we need more. And I think now that people are really investing and are really willing to pay a little bit more for these kind of pieces, we're gonna get there sooner. So one day we're gonna be like Nilüfer, no, and have these beautiful spaces and full of pieces, which I really wanted to ask you, and how it's working, for example, with those galleries, which are like really big names and really big, because Nilüfer, which is the gallery he has been working in Milan, I don't think it's like any other gallery, because they have a gallery and they have this place called Nilüfer Depot, which is like a big apartment store full of unique pieces, no? Which is, I think it's different from other galleries. I don't know how was just you mentioned they bought like the collection from you, you know. So the moment you give your pieces to the gallery, and then I don't know if you know what's happening to those pieces, where are they going, for how, you know. So I think that's also there's a break there. That I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, what was your experience?
Well, it's been. I started working with Nilüfer when I was really young, to be honest, and I probably was one of their youngest designer. And for me, they only work with people I admire really a lot. This being Ron Arad or Martino Gamper, who was my professor, or one of my really good friends, Bethan Laura Wood, who's also one of the most talented designer I know, and then Nina. So because Nilüfer is really about with this character, this personality that he's the owner, and she has the most amazing sharp taste, and it's really not only about the eyes, it's also about the culture and the references that the piece have together. And she collects fantastic Tibetan carpet from the 18th century, and she will put it together with modernist, like post-war era Italian designers like BBPR. And so for me it was really, to be honest, I was always like learning from the relationship. And in terms of work, it's not my favorite thing, in a way that she's always like, do something. And I think I prefer to have a lot of constraint. I prefer to have a very tight budget. I prefer to have manufacturing. But that's my point of view. But it's always a lot of learning, I guess, working for people that reach this stage in collecting and showing and now, yeah. And it's an interesting and complex situation and relation as well to work with galleries, I think.
And there's also designers that only work with galleries.
Yeah, which is really not my thing.
Yeah.
I work very little with galleries compared to many.
Yeah, which that's also another part, no? Like the designers who only work with galleries. And I think it's more like an artist working with a gallery than a designer. But I think also from my experience with these designers, sometimes they lose. I think it's good to have that balance as a designer, not just to focus on galleries, because I think they lose. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, it's not well finished, but this is how it is. It's part of the piece. It's scratch, no? And it's like, no. And I think when you're also doing design, not collectible design, like you know you get it perfect. I think that's, for my experience, not even here, but working with designers with a man, we've noticed that, you know, because now they're like also artist, and as an artist you can have that freedom, like say like, yeah, this is how the piece is because I want it to be like this, no? But you know that it's really not, it was not meant to be like that. Which I think I think as a designer it's a good thing to have this combination. And yes, I don't know, Ceci, if you wanna add anything. Or you, Fabian?
No, bueno, we can continue and continue, which is amazing. But for example, what you were saying of the desk and the glass pieces that you sold for a gallery, and those are like maybe unique pieces, no? And like, so if you, Montse was also asking you, who was this crazy collector that bought them, for one, no? Or how much did he pay for them, no? Because that's also like another question, like that's up there, no? Money, no? And then you put the market, no? And who decides, even if the production costs, I mean, nothing or very little, or it costs a lot, and then it has to sell not so high, no? Like that's, how do you decide and who's the market, no? But like first, Fabian can answer, and then you can engage in the conversation.
So what's the question to me?
Who bought and how much, no?
If
you know, no?
Yeah, I really always make a point of, I'm not interested in knowing, to be honest. No, really, like I think I'm not a seller, I'm a designer, I do pieces. And then I also don't always do pieces, I design interiors, I design spaces. But I think when it gets to be, I'm never in a fair, like it's not my place. I think that's the place for the gallerist, not the place for the designer. I do the work and then I leave. So the real thing is, I don't know. I don't know who bought it. And I don't know how much. I think I could know how much because I know how much I got from
the gallery.
From the gallery,
yeah.
And I got.
But you want to get paid for what you make.
So
no.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I think design
I mean, you don't
work.
care about the market, but you have to get paid for what you.
That's why I worked very little for galleries. I think I got 3,500 euros from the sale, and I think that was 40% of the share. So
do the math.
7, 8, something like this, I guess. 8,000 euros.
Yeah, but and then like for example, that was sold immediately in the gallery, because that's also another question that people don't buy so fast. No?
Well, that was made for a fair. There was a very specific project that where the gallerist asked 4 designers to curate the booth.
Okay.
And so we all made a specific piece. We said, okay, what are we going to do? And we all made a specific piece for the booth. And we sold it there.
They sold. Because many times it happens that people don't get like what you were telling at Fernando Lapos in Mexico, no? Because he was well known in London, but not in Mexico. And people like need time to digest. And then it's 1 year, and then year 2, and then, no? And that's like good and bad because it takes time, no? And then you've worked already, and then you've invested already, and then...
Yeah. Also last year, I remember you had that conversation with Rodman and Juan from, well, the director of Design Miami, and Juan, who's a gallerist from New York. And Juan was saying that and that it's really true, that compared to art, when you open an exhibition, a design exhibition, it takes longer to sell than art, no? That it's probably, because to the openings, they will come the friends of the designer or your friends, but you start selling a project like months after that, no? Or years after that. Which sometimes happens, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I think it's that. And in terms, for example, here in Mexico has been interesting because compared to Europe or the United States, there's very few people who buy design at that level, you know, at those prices. And they're usually also art collectors. And from my experience with a man in galleries as Design Miami or the Salon Art and Design, hair collectors are art collectors as well. But here in Mexico also, what I love to see, obviously our prices are not as high because we want to we want to build the market, and I love when a client comes and I know it's a struggle for them, and they're really saving to get a piece, but I know they love it, you know, and I love when I know it's not something easy for them, but they want to have it and they want to live with it. And for me, that's great, because I know that maybe today they're buying these for 10 pesos, and then next year they're going to buy something for 20 pesos, you know, and that's how a collector starts, and that's how the market starts. So that's what we have been trying to do. Obviously, there's also clients that come and like.
Do you work for interior designers?
Yes, a lot. Yeah, but for interior designers, we do a lot because we also do art, and with interior designers, we do a lot for art. For example, those pieces, those sculptural pieces, that's what we sell the most. Those kind of pieces, that's what we sell the most for interior designers. And that artist, he also makes functional pieces, no, that we love. So it's a good point that what you mentioned, the work with interior designers and architects is very important for us, because you have the two kinds of clients. You have your private collector or your private client that come and buys from you for their home or for their office, and then you have your interior design architects who keep bringing you jobs, which is great, you know, and maybe today is a house and maybe tomorrow is a hotel. No, so it's they are very important also, not in terms of volume, but also like, yes, I want this, but the double size, no, and it's also a good relationship to be working with interior designers. But yeah, I think in Mexico it's different who you buy and your prices, and what we were talking before. No, that I don't personally, I don't like to inflate the price, bring up the price, too much, just to compete with the other galleries here. Like, that will be impossible, you know, like, of course I won't do it, because we're not there yet, and my designers are not there yet. So, because some people come and say like, oh, it's too cheap. I was like, no, it's not cheap. For me, it's not cheap. You know, for Mexicans, it is not cheap. So it's adapting. For me, has been learning, you know, from here, from this market, try to adapt it to our market. So that has been our experience. ¿No?
¿Preguntas aquí atrás? ¿Quieren conversar también?
Ese punto que dice Montserrat de adaptar el mercado es importantísimo, ¿no? Porque aquí, pues como dices, es un sector muy pequeño el que tiene acceso a este tipo de compras, ¿no? Pero que tú veas a alguien que le enamora, ¿no? Que ves esa pieza que dices, hoy pues voy a ya para la próxima, en lugar de comprarme esto, pues me compro esto, ¿no? Irte involucrando, metiendo al mercado, que es nuestro mercado, se me hace muy interesante y muy buena estrategia, ¿no? Poco a poco, por ejemplo, venir a estas exposiciones que son nuevas, ¿no? Lo de Maco está padre, porque poco a poco ya la gente se va involucrando más en el arte, ¿no? Yo, por ejemplo. Una vez.
Que fue, creo que lo que pasó también en el arte, o sea, hace 10 años o 20 años el mercado del arte en México no era lo que es hoy. Y el diseño, pues nosotros siempre digo que somos como el piggyback del arte, ¿no? O sea, le hacemos piggyback al mercado del arte.
El hermano chiquito.
¿Qué?
Somos el hermano chiquito.
El hermano chiquito, exacto. Entonces vamos aprendiendo de él. Entonces, ojalá en unos años tengamos una feria así de puro diseño, ¿no?
Sí.
Esperemos.
¿Alguien más quiere comentar algo?
Un poco cuando hablabas de la obra de Fernando, en especial esta parte de que la parte funcional no era tan importante, ¿cuál sería entonces la diferencia con trabajar nada más con escultores? O sea, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre Fernando haciendo obras escultóricas sin función y, no sé, por ejemplo, Tania Candiani, que tiene un poco la misma línea con el maíz y etcétera, y por qué hay unas galerías que harían eso y que no, y por qué diseñadores no podríamos entrar a galerías de arte con piezas poco funcionales?
Creo que, por ejemplo, ahí la diferencia entre Tania y Fernando, o sea, lo veo muchas veces el artista no lo hace él, ¿no? El artista contrata a un diseñador, por ejemplo, Tania Candiani, sus piezas las hace Ricardo Casas, ¿no? Entonces, el artista o el escultor, bueno, hay personas que sí lo hacen, pero, por ejemplo, el diseñador en este caso con Fernando se meten mucho en los procesos, ¿no? Y también mucho en la parte social, pero mucho en la parte de materiales, procesos. Siento que más que un escultor o más que un artista, ¿no? Creo que eso es como una de las grandes diferencias. Y de diseñadores, por ejemplo, sí ha pasado. Claro, son muy pocas, pero por ejemplo, Ron Arad ahora lo vende Paul Kasmin, ¿no? Entonces, sí ha pasado. Claro, ya llegan a un punto donde ya es considerado, ya saben que si lo hizo Ron Arad es arte, ¿no? Y ya lo venden ahí. Y creo que es para un diseñador, para entrar a una y lo he visto, de hecho trabajamos, por ejemplo, Sebastián Beltrán, que es diseñador mexicano de Tijuana, pero que radica en León. Él trabaja con galerías de diseño, haciendo piezas funcionales de edición limitada, pero también tiene su práctica artística y trabaja con galerías de arte, haciendo piezas meramente artísticas, ¿no? Entonces, es que hay una línea es una línea súper delgada, ¿no? Entonces se puede hacer como de las dos maneras. Y mucha gente trabaja con galerías de arte y también con galerías de diseño. ¿Dónde?
Eduardo Terrazas, que está en Monclova también, es arquitecto y artista, y él vivió toda su vida de la arquitectura y ahora es el artista.
Y ahora es
¿no?
el artista, sí, que así pasa muchísimo, ¿no? En México, entonces, o hasta Barragán, ¿no? Que ahora se venden sus muebles por miles de pesos. Entonces, ¿cuáles miles de pesos? Miles de dólares. Entonces, la banca que tenían acá de Barragán ya se vendió, que ya no estaba porque se vendió ayer, ¿no? Ay, no sé, pero seguro costaba unos $20,000 o más, no sé. Estaba en ADN, la tenían en ADN. O más, seguro más. Sí, seguro más. Entonces,
¿y en dónde crees que aquí en México se están dando esos discursos sobre, por ejemplo, esos diseñadores que mencionas, qué piezas tienen que mandar a la parte a las galerías de su arte y qué piezas tienen que mandar a las de diseño?
pues lo que yo creo que las que tienen que ir a las de diseño es eso, piezas que son o decorativas o artísticas, pero que también tienen algo funcional, ¿no? A lo mejor no son las sillas más cómodas, pero es una silla, ¿no? O es una escultura, o sea, es una luminaria que también es una escultura, ¿no? Creo que ahí se podría definir mejor, que igual es una escultura o igual es una silla, ¿no? Puede ser los dos, o puede ser una lámpara o puede ser una escultura, ¿no? Creo que ahí está la línea de yo cómo lo definiría. Si yo estoy haciendo arte y estoy haciendo diseño, así es como... Y también qué tipo de gente quieres llegar, ¿no?
Claro, y allí es esta línea bien delgada que, por ejemplo, la practicalidad del objeto, ¿no? ¿Qué tan práctico es? Si es una silla que es de mármol que no puedo mover, pero está muy cómoda, pero algo, y un diseñador sí piensa a veces en hay que moverla, hay que usarla por todos lados, y alguien dice me da igual, y entonces tiene sillas de mármol que no se mueven y que igual son muy frías porque están en un lugar congelado y tampoco la usas, pero se ve divina, ¿no? Sí. Por ejemplo, la lámpara en Art & Company, el candil, de Studio Drift, que mucha gente pregunta, les gusta, y es y si la muchacha lo trapea.
Ahí te encargo.
Ajá, 65,000 euros para que la muchacha está trapeando y se deshaga la pieza, ¿no?
Claro.
Entonces, también un diseñador, ¿cómo lo hace? O ellos mismos hicieron una versión con acrílico, ¿no?
Sí.
Entonces, ahí hay un cambio interesante también. We changed to Spanish, but you got it all the time. Cool. No sé si tienen algo más que platicar o unirse a la conversación, o igual ya nos vamos a tomar unos tequilas. 1800. Pues no, Monse, Fabián, mil gracias por estar con nosotros. De verdad que esta conversación puede seguir dando, está bien padre. Gracias por venir. Creo que se quedan muchas cosas por seguir pensando y haciendo, ¿no? Y pues nada, que disfruten el sábado. Gracias.
Gracias.